My name is Danielle Fopp, and today I will be taking you through the lecture on the risks surrounding social appraisal. In this topic, we will take a look at the risks of not completing a social appraisal for your construction project. Identifying and mitigating negative impacts before they occur will reduce delays and prevent roadblocks in your project. A social appraisal is another example of a preventative rather than reactive approach to your project planning. The outputs and ideas generated in your social appraisal may also be used when completing community engagement requirements under your project's development application. The requirements for planning are covered in the course Development Regulation. There are risks if the social appraisal is not completed, but also if it is not shared and considered in the context of other studies. Social impacts should be considered in the context of what project activities could induce social impacts for which people. So here you might like to reference the project's other technical studies, for example, traffic or acoustic studies where relevant. You should consider any other activities or projects that may combine to produce cumulative impacts, which we'll look at further in a second. We also want to take a look at whether the project meets the objectives of relevant environmental planning instruments, such as local environmental plans. A preliminary assessment of each impact and the proportionate level of assessment during the SIA scoping, and whether the project design has been refined in response to current findings. When it comes to large-scale construction projects, communities often welcome them, particularly when they bring the promise of more tax dollars to the area or economic activity for the surrounding community, additional jobs. However, there will always be some groups who do not want a new development in their city or town for a variety of reasons. The promise of economic benefit might be there, but it just isn't enough to convince residents or special interest groups to get on board, and they may protest the project in the form of live demonstrations, pressure on elected officials, publicity campaigns, or even lawsuits. Other sites can draw construction workers where managers renege on union hiring promises, while others face opposition from groups protesting negative cultural or environmental impacts of the new project. Although protests are often an inevitable component of a major undertaking, developers can get out and ahead of the controversy to ensure the community and workforce feels included and content with the new project. This is partly where the social appraisal comes in. The social appraisal provides clarity surrounding the positive and negative impacts, economic impact, groups who might be fighting change in their community and really delving into why they don't want that change. We're also going to focus on positive impacts of the community and concerns over cultural impact. If a social appraisal determines the project to be high risk socially, it is advisable to either postpone the project or to start with a pilot project or work on further community engagement. Let's take a look at some examples where this should have occurred. We're looking at one for a gas project in Western Australia. The federal government here intervened to halt work on the controversial project in Western Australia's Pilbara region. The then Minister for Environment and the company behind the project reached a mutual agreement to stop work on the $4.3 billion project for 30 days. The intervention comes after traditional custodians and Josie Alec and Raylene Cooper pushed for the determination of an outstanding Section 9 and Section 10 application under the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act. The 30 days will allow time for the application to be considered and determined, and Ms. Alec said that the EPA's assessment of damages to the local Murujuga area was inadequate. She says, quote, "The EPA have said there is uncertainty about the impacts and more science is required. For us, there is no uncertainty. We live with these impacts each and every day because we are connected to the country in a spiritual way that cannot be fully understood by science. Using science to measure impacts to our cultural heritage is like using a microscope to understand the Bible. There is nothing uncertain and nothing acceptable about what is going to happen to our cultural heritage here. We have personally witnessed the disintegration and fading of the rock art. We don't need more science to tell us something is wrong on our country. We need those responsible in government to stop allowing Woodside to destroy it. Let's take a look at another example. So this is an example, again, in Western Australia, where residents were opposed to a major highway being built through a community in WA's southwest. They were protesting as bulldozers moved in, with police needing to intervene as people tried to block machinery. After lengthy environmental approvals, fences were this month erected around a decade-old reserve, cutting through the semi-rural community of Gellerup. More than 300 people gathered on Sunday afternoon to protest the road going through their suburb, which they said will devastate the local environment. An environmental impact assessment found that while the original route would have a higher impact on the western ringtail possum, the alternative option would significantly impact on wetlands and endangered aquatic fauna. Main Roads Western Australia has been bound by a strict set of environmental conditions to minimise impacts on the local flora and fauna, including the endangered black cockatoo and western ringtail possum. The road corridor has been preserved for more than 40 years and contains dense bushland. Local residents have been fighting for the road to be diverted around their community, citing environmental and amenity concerns. Construction was already well advanced on the northern part of the road. However, the southern length has always been tied up in environmental green tape amid strong opposition from the local community to all available options. Transport Minister at the time told the ABC it was about striking a balance between critical infrastructure like the Outer Ring Road and minimising environmental impacts. Now, the local Bunbury Outer Ring Road Action Group said it was exploring any potential legal avenues to prevent work from proceeding further. So we can see in both of these examples, either the community was consulted, however their considerations, needs and issues were not integrated fully enough into the project, or they were not consulted. I was not involved in these projects, so I am not aware, but you can see both are very different projects and both are having a significant impact on the local community.